Hey guys, today we have Dheeraj and he is having 10 year of experience in Java, Spring Boot and microservices domain. And this video is going to be very interesting. So let's get started. So hey, hi Dheeraj, how are you?
Hi Faizan, I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Yes, I'm also fine. Shall we start?
Yes, please.
Okay. So can you please introduce yourself and about your recent project?
Okay, so I'm working with my current organization for the last 7 years,
Okay.
and I joined this organization as a big data developer.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I joined, that project lasted for only 3 months, and then
Okay.
it got scrapped. And after that, I switched into a different project that was
Mm-hmm.
one healthcare project, and
Mm-hmm.
in that work was as an IC I joined, and that was a REST API and
Okay.
Java, and that project lasted for around 1 year. So,
Okay.
and after that, different projects I'm working in, and
Mm-hmm.
those projects are mostly in REST API only. For the
Okay.
last 6 months, I'm also working in CI/CD deployment side as well.
DevOps side, you
Yeah,
mean?
DevOps side, not whole and soul DevOps. It's
Mm-hmm.
only from the deployment point of view, and
Okay.
we have our company has one in-house product that is Quark. So
Okay.
rather than Jenkins, we use Quark, and
Mm-hmm.
workflow is almost same.
Mm-hmm.
So once application is merged, the code is
Mm-hmm.
merged of
Mm-hmm.
application, so it will run the workflow.
Mm-hmm.
So in that workflow, we have like it will create a jar file, and that
Mm-hmm.
jar file will be uploaded into Artifactory, and
Okay.
then deployment will be run, and that jar file will be uploaded into Kate. So that is
Mm-hmm.
one thing. So for the last 1 year, I'm working in a
Mm-hmm.
project. So we leverage the architecture of microservices. When I say we leverage, so it's not exactly microservices
Okay.
based, but like we have three components. So
Okay.
is it possible like I can share my screen, and on the paint I'll be able to explain you?
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. That is fine.
Yes. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
share that to make it easier.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see my screen.
Yes, yes. I can see.
Rather than Notepad, I'll open Paint.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So okay. So like, sorry,
Yeah, yeah, fine.
we have like three component.
Okay.
So first component is here. The first component is front
Mm-hmm.
end, and that is
Okay.
on React JS. Now second component, it
So,
is
okay, okay. Go ahead.
backend component,
Backend. Mm-hmm.
and this one is validation. So
Okay.
and all these three components are deployed separately. Now, why I'm saying it's not exactly microservices, I'll tell
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, uh, how does it happen that we cater to 17 applications, 17 different application,
Mm-hmm.
and in the front end, we will display the health of those 17 application
Mm-hmm.
using the Grafana or Kibana or Splunk URL of those
Okay.
application. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
a user once logged in, he will be authenticated, and
Mm-hmm.
there will be a drop down. So
Mm-hmm.
out of those 17 application, he will be authorized to see the health of his own application only. So it will be
Mm-hmm.
mapping from user to application mapping,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
if he is authorized to see suppose X application, he
Mm-hmm.
can see the health of that application for the last 1 year, one
Mm-hmm.
month,
1 month,
1 week,
anytime.
or 1 hour, anytime, even time he can select, and
Okay.
he can see that what is the CPU utilization of that application, like
Okay.
memory when
Memory usage
at
and so
memory
you guys
usage.
are using actuator for health. checks or what?
No, I'm coming to that actually.
Okay,
So
okay.
actuator we are using in the backend, but
Mm-hmm.
here we are not using actuator. For using the Grafana, it will
Mm-hmm.
display us the graph. So Grafana or Kibana, it will
Mm-hmm.
tell us that at what particular time our CPU utilization went high. So how
Oh,
does it
okay.
happen that? Uh, so I'll start from the last component. So
Mm-hmm.
in the validation component, or we call it metadata.
Mm-hmm.
So we are catering like 17 application. So all the application will upload their JSON file, their metadata JSON file into
Okay.
GCS, that is Google Bucket Storage, Google
Mm-hmm.
Cloud Storage, and we read their file from that storage. And that is a
Okay.
huge file that contains their matrices, their
Mm-hmm.
Grafana URL, their data
Mm-hmm.
sources, their child data sources. So
Okay.
we validate those JSON file. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
JSON file is validated, but validation is also based upon that there is a data source and their child data sources as well. So
Mm-hmm.
there are business logic written. So based upon those business logic, this is a huge component. We have written validation component. So we are reading each and every JSON file. We are
And
uh, read,
validating here.
we are validating using Spring Boot. And if
Okay.
validation is successful, then
Mm-hmm.
we will again upload same JSON file into Google Bucket using CI/CD pipeline.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
first we are, and now here
Mm-hmm.
before uploading that, we
Mm-hmm.
we check all the JSON file, and in the code,
Mm-hmm.
suppose anyone is making changes, tomorrow a new
Mm-hmm.
validation is coming. So we regularly update the code and we check that if sonar is successful and
Mm-hmm.
JUnit coverage is more than 80%, then only it will be successful. After that is successful, we upload that JSON file into
Mm-hmm.
a into GCS. This time not to the source location, but there will be a destination location.
Okay.
Now the work of this validation component, this microservice is completed. Now
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm saying that in the microservices, what happens that each components is separate, their deployment
Separate.
is separate, their
Mm-hmm.
scalability is separate.
Yeah,
So here
everything is separate.
and we are all exposing this REST API.
Mm-hmm.
So in microservices, what happens that all the components, they expose their REST API. So one component can read the REST API of the other component. But
Mm-hmm.
here, and any different component doesn't need to read the REST API of this component. As soon as we upload the metadata JSON
Mm-hmm.
to GCS,
Mm-hmm.
the work of this component is done.
Okay.
Okay. Now
Mm-hmm.
this backend component, this will read the JSON file from
Okay.
GCS location where this has uploaded. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now it has got all the Grafana URL
Mm-hmm.
of that. Now, before that, what happens once a user logged in,
Mm-hmm.
he will go through the authentication part. Okay.
Okay.
This
Okay.
component is written in React.js, but once a user logged in, so that is authentication part we have written in Spring Boot only. Basically,
Okay.
we are doing the validate not authentication.
Mm-hmm.
Authentication we are doing like a user logged in, a
Mm-hmm.
username through his email ID. So his email ID and password.
You
Now,
are. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Go
now
ahead.
his password is stored in Google Bucket in
Okay.
encrypted form. So
Mm-hmm.
authentication part we are not doing using JWT. Authentication part
Okay.
we are doing uh, from its JSON. Basically, in the JSON Google storage, in it's saved. Okay,
Okay.
now uh, as I said that there will be a drop down in
Mm-hmm.
that he will be able to see a
Mm-hmm.
particular application. So which application he is authorized to see. So there comes the authorization.
Authorization.
Okay, so
Okay.
now there will be some filters. After that filter, there will be authentication manager. So JWT authentication manager.
Mm-hmm.
There will be like JWT provider manager will be
Mm-hmm.
implementing that class, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, there will be authentication provider. So previously we were using a auth authentication
2.0.
provider. Yes, now we are
Mm-hmm.
using JWT. So
For authorization.
for authorization, I'm sorry, for authorization.
Okay,
So
okay.
now provider will see that which authorization provider it will looked into. And it will send its request to that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now that authorization provider will tell that yes, I am the authorization, or
Mm-hmm.
it will say no. If it returns false, then that is not the authorization manager. Now
Mm-hmm.
the authentication manager will go to other authorization manager. It will go to JWT authorization manager.
Mm-hmm.
That will hit my database, and in
Okay.
the database there are like we have different tables
So which
against.
SQL database you guys are using?
So there we are using MySQL database.
MySQL.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So against those, like application user, against those we have different entity of.
Mm-hmm.
So there can be a scenario when a user is authorized to see more than one application also. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like one-to-one mapping. So in the entity, we define mapping.
Okay.
Okay, so like one-to-one mapping or one-to-many
Mm-hmm.
mapping. Okay, so and it returns a the JWT token, and it will return to the user. So next time if user performs
Mm-hmm.
any operation, so
Mm-hmm.
he need not log in again and again. So that's about the uh, architecture of our
Architecture of our
application.
application.
So I am looking into basic whole and soul. I am looking into the third component, and
Validation.
yes, and yes, validation. And
Mm-hmm.
this first part, front end, I'm not because that's not my cup of tea, React JS. So I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
front end guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, in our team, there are four, five separate members. So uh,
Mm-hmm.
we we have 12 members in our team. So
Okay, okay.
uh,
Got it.
I'm a lead of six team members, including myself. So I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
into whole and soul validation plus some backend part
Backend part.
as well as deployment. So
Okay.
that's about it. So for now, I'll stop sharing, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whenever I need to
Yes,
tell
yes,
something,
definitely.
I'll share again. So that's
Okay.
about it.
Okay. Okay. It was nice. So, what was the toughest validation you have done so far? Do you know?
Okay. So there was like
Since you were saying
no.
you were a part of validation things most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So uh, toughest was we have it's difficult to name one, but
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
name two, three. So
Yeah,
okay,
that's fine.
one was like now what is happening that
Mm-hmm.
whenever a request is coming, so
Mm-hmm.
it's a JSON file, it's part file.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so part file it's coming as a request, and
Mm-hmm.
when so whenever we are applying validation of that, so
Mm-hmm.
first of all we are deserializing that into the
Mm-hmm.
object, and we have created some validation objects. First of
Mm-hmm.
all, a parent object, and under the parent object there are different child object.
Child
So
objects.
because
Correct.
it's in the form of JSON, and
Mm-hmm.
we have like previously when we started this, we applied like uh, this particular field will be not null, and
Mm-hmm.
this particular field be of date type. So
Mm-hmm.
we thought of like applying annotation and few
Mm-hmm.
fields like minimum character, maximum character, like that.
Okay. Okay.
So we started with that, and
Mm-hmm.
but later on we realized that it's gonna be tough because like a parent object can be part of a child object as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, of in the hierarchy it comes
You
very
mean
inside.
graph can be formed?
Yes, graph can be formed. So if
Okay.
in the JSON there is one parent element, so
Mm-hmm.
inside that data, let's call it student. So in
Mm-hmm.
the student there comes the department. In the department there comes
Mm-hmm.
again sub department. In the sub department there is again student, and
Mm-hmm.
in the inner student will have the
Mm-hmm.
same object. Okay,
Okay.
and we have applied logic like and in the student also there is department. Now the
Mm-hmm.
innermost department ID
Mm-hmm.
should be matching with the its parents department ID. So we applied like annotation, but
Mm-hmm.
we realized that, and there it was like yes, few fields are not nullable, but when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
childmost element, so it's
Mm-hmm.
not necessary, those are not null. So it was difficult to define using annotation that when it comes to this object it's not null, and outermost object is not null.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that was difficult. So we applied validation for each and every object element
Object.
of that object separately.
Mm-hmm. Correct,
So
correct.
we leveraged mostly Java 8 functionality, particularly predicate. So from the
Predicate.
predicate, we have applied the uh, functionality. Suppose now
Mm-hmm.
in the child object, if the
Mm-hmm.
URL, their application URL can be of Grafana, can be of
Mm-hmm.
Kibana, can be of Splunk. So
Mm-hmm.
if a particular application is using Grafana
Mm-hmm.
URL, then data source ID is mandatory.
Okay.
And apart from Grafana, data source ID is not mandatory. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
using annotation, we could not apply that it's mandatory field.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
now is we applied if data source ID is if URL is Grafana,
Grafana.
then data source ID not should not be null. So
Mm-hmm.
we used in the predicate, and we used we I mean did validation for each and every
Correct, correct. So
object.
did you guys leverage optional classes?
Yes, we did.
Where can you tell me a particular scenario?
Okay, so when we read some since we are using Spring Boot, and
Mm-hmm.
we are reading some property from application property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and in the application property we read it like at the rate value
Mm-hmm.
and curly braces, then uh, key of what we are seeing in
Mm-hmm.
application property. So now if that value does not exist, okay, then
Mm-hmm.
it will give us null pointer exception. So optional
Mm-hmm.
dot get then value, in that case if we get, and
We can
if
avoid null
we can
pointer
avoid
except.
null pointer exception here.
Yeah, yeah, correct, correct. So what was the project model? Like we have several models like waterfall, agile, and all.
Yes,
So
we are using agile methodology, and
okay,
previously we used to have a sprint of 2 weeks, but
okay,
currently
three
uh,
weeks.
no, not in 3 weeks, but 1 week only. I know it's
Okay.
we are not following standard practice, but
And what about the testing efforts in 1 week itself?
yes, no, actually we uh, create our story in such a way that
Hmm.
development, it will be either a development only story
Or a
or
test only story?
a test only story. So, and the reason of 1 week sprint is that we have to, for after every week, we have to give demo of whatever
What you
we
have
have done
done?
in
Okay.
the last week to the higher management. So
Okay.
it's easier to, like, we have
Mm.
created
So
this
productions are frequently or what? Because since there is 1 week sprint, so productions live production would be frequent or not?
no, not that frequent.
Not.
So because it's our we are developing a product,
Mm-hmm.
and it's for our internal application only.
Okay, okay.
As of now, it's for internal application.
Mm-hmm.
So it will go live once everything is successful.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Nice, nice. So now moving to some questions. Uh, can you tell me what is a primary role of Spring Boot auto configuration?
Okay.
Mm.
So basically, what happens that
Mm-hmm.
once application is built, so
Mm-hmm.
in Spring Boot in the new version, we
Mm-hmm.
use Spring Boot application,
Okay.
okay, as an annotation. And
Mm-hmm.
Spring Boot application inside has three annotations: Spring Boot configuration, enable
Mm-hmm.
auto configuration, and component scan. So
Mm-hmm.
auto configuration, basically it's enable auto configuration, but that extends auto configuration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so whatsoever are beans, it will be automatically configured, but which beans are auto configured, which are there inside components, can we define a
Mm-hmm.
package, or if we don't define it, reads that package in which our main class is there. So
Okay.
it will auto configure all the class in that package and base packages.
Okay. Okay. So, what happens if multiple auto configuration classes define the same bean?
Okay, then we have to provide like using qualifier name. We can define that this will be our primary, or we can define @primary also. If
Primary
the
annotation.
primary or qualifier name, we can define that which bean should be
Mm-hmm.
loaded.
Okay. Okay. So, Dheeraj, before moving on to the next question, do you know that we have designed a complete interview preparation package, structured step by step, containing 16 PDFs? So, it's basically a one-stop solution to crack any interview. This package covers core Java, Spring Framework, Maven, Git, Spring Boot, scenario-based questions, Spring Security, Spring Embassy, Spring Data JPA, microservices, Hibernate, general Java coding questions, Stream API coding questions, and many more. The best part is that people have been telling me that they crack their interviews with this material, and there is a 99% chance that the interviewer will ask question from this package. So after this interview, I will share a link with you to get this, and also I will add in the description of this video. Okay. So
Okay, sounds good.
now, yeah, now moving to our questions. Uh, how does Spring Boot Actuator enhance application management?
Okay, so first of all, we need to apply that dependency Spring Boot starter actuator in our form XML.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
now using this, we can check health of our REST API.
Okay.
Uh, when I say health, so
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, if we hit actuator APIs, so
Mm-hmm.
right now don't remember the exact syntax like
Yeah,
what
yeah,
is the
that is fine.
what is the URL, but
Uh,
uh, health of a particular REST API and how many times that REST API has been hit,
mm-hmm.
and if it is giving correct response, it's up and healthy. So and
Okay.
basically we use this uh, when we were deploying our application in CI/CD pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, using in the application
Mm-hmm.
validation component, we
Okay.
uh, we pass JSON file as a part file,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
we were not getting correct response. So we wanted to
Mm-hmm.
check if using the actuator, if our application is being hit or not. So now
Okay.
we have added one action that if using actuator, if it is healthy,
Mm-hmm.
then only it will go and read all the JSON file. Because if actuator itself is unhealthy, so
Mm-hmm.
there is no point hitting total 17 JSON files first,
Mm-hmm.
retrieving those and applying validation. It will take time. So in the advance, we can know if our application is up and healthy. If it's unhealthy, then this CI/CD
Mm-hmm.
will be failed.
Okay. Okay. So, what security measures should be implemented when using Spring Boot Actuator in, especially production?
I'm not sure about that because particularly in production
Uh,
environment, we have not worked on yet.
okay. Okay.
Uh,
So, like, we can take like IP whitelisting, HTTPS, restricting sensitive endpoints to authorized roles.
so that we are doing, because restrictive, and how we are doing, like since as I said, in our front end only,
Mm-hmm.
uh, user will select the application from the drop down only. So
Whichever
whichever
is,
yeah,
uh,
whichever application is selecting, that will be appended to my REST API, and
Okay.
that will only go to as a REST API to my controller.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
and also we have all the APIs are private.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, moving ahead, can you describe how properties are managed in Spring Boot?
Okay, so in the application property, we define like
So
server
which
port.
one do you use? Like properties, dot properties or YAML?
We use properties. But
Why? I
yes,
mean,
I mean, lastly, I heard that YAML is more clean and it
mm-hmm.
gives us, but
Indentations.
yeah, indentation. But from the starting itself, we are using property, so we never thought of switching
Okay, okay.
because now we have come across too far uh,
Mm-hmm.
to make changes. So currently, we are using properties only, application properties only,
Okay.
and we can use like currently in development environment only. So
Mm-hmm.
like we can use application dev properties,
Mm-hmm.
and there is another property name, currently don't remember that. It will tell that which environment is live, whether dev
Mm-hmm.
environment is live or production. So no, it will read property from those only.
Okay. Okay, so let's say you are moving an application from development to production, and so how would you override the data source URLs without changing the code?
So we don't need to override URLs. Reason I'm saying,
The
because
productions and dev URLs, I mean host name, may
no,
different, right?
yeah, those will be different, but their application properties are different.
Yeah.
Okay, so in if we are hitting like there will be application property, there will be application staging dot properties, there will be
Mm-hmm.
application dev dot properties. So
Mm-hmm.
uh,
So yeah,
uh,
that's what I just wanted to know. So how you guys are managing these? Like how many environments you are having currently, like dev, prod, and is there any
so
QA environment as well for testing?
no queue environment.
Okay. Okay. So do you know about database migration? Like how does Spring Boot handle database migration?
Not
Like
sure, but
Flyway,
but
there is tool Flyway.
actually all the queries we are writing in using JP only. Those either these are
Mm-hmm.
JPQL, or uh, we are like extending in the repository JPA repository. So we are
Mm-hmm.
in our application, we are not writing uh, SQL pertaining to a specific database. So
Okay.
we can just in our application properties only, uh, we can just change the URLs and port of the database if we have to migrate.
Okay. Okay. So can you, I mean, do you know about a transactional annotation
Yes. So
or yeah, go ahead.
okay. So transactional annotation, it says like if we have to perform a transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a transaction contains multiple steps. Step
Mm-hmm.
number one, step number two. So like I am applying for a job,
Mm-hmm.
and I am uploading my photo. I am giving my details like what's my name, my qualification. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I am now saving it. Okay. Or
Mm-hmm.
like rather than applying the job, we can fill any other form where we have to pay also. Okay.
Okay.
So once I have done that, my details just I uploaded. I
Mm-hmm.
clicked on save button, but
Mm-hmm.
now I'm using the payment gateway. I'm
Okay.
making the payment. Suppose payment is failed, so it
Mm-hmm.
will roll back the whole transaction. So it's not like that my details are saved and my transaction is not saved. So at from the starting to end, it will roll back my
It
whole
will roll back.
transaction. Yes.
Okay. So can transaction management be externally managed in Spring Boot or must be within the application?
We have never come across such scenarios, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, that is fine. So actually, Spring Boot supports in application declarative transaction management, and it also integrates with external transaction management, especially in distributed systems or when using Java transaction API across multiple transactional resources.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay. So yes, moving ahead. Mm, you were saying you were a part of validation most of the time. So, what was the most frequently annotations you have used for a validation? Can you uh, give
okay.
us overview?
Yes. So,
Yes, or any
uh,
third party library for validation.
okay. So extensively we used REST controller advice. So
Okay.
it's not like we have used at multiple places. It will
Mm-hmm.
be used only at one place, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, it it is leveraged across the application. For
Okay.
example, uh, uh, validation can be failed at any business logic, and if
Mm-hmm.
validation is failed, so whichever API in the controller itself,
Mm-hmm.
so I will throw my validation exception, and it I will catch in my controller, and
Okay.
okay, uh, then in my validation I will check that what property is wrong. Okay, now
Mm-hmm.
I will throw validation exception and I will pass some parameters, and I have created global
Mm-hmm.
exception, global handler exception,
Global 100.
and inside it's annotated by REST controller advice. And we can have multiple validations. Suppose there will be one method, handle validation exception, or
Mm-hmm.
handle, say, arithmetic exception, handle
Mm-hmm.
ABC exception. Okay,
Okay.
so and now I will also create an object API error response. What
Okay.
API error response will contain my
Mm-hmm.
binding. So whenever I'm catching the exception, it
Mm-hmm.
contains my binding exception as well. And
Okay.
inside binding exception will it contains my object in which application has occurred. So when I
Okay.
say object, say in my date uh,
Mm-hmm.
error has occurred. So binding object, using binding object, I can get the date, and now I can create a error code, and
Mm-hmm.
against that error code I can create one exception in my property file, and
Mm-hmm.
that will tell me that your date should be within this date, or your data source should be from 25 to 50 characters. Okay, in
Okay.
my API error response I will have the field in which error has occurred,
Mm-hmm.
error code, error response, and I will display in JSON format. And uh, now coming to global handler class, inside,
Mm-hmm.
say, handle validation exception, it will
Mm-hmm.
be annotated by @exception in the
Mm-hmm.
bracket validation exception, or whichever exception it has been caught, and
Okay.
I will return here error response. Okay, so
Okay.
now REST controller advice uses the functionality of AOP. So
Mm.
what does AOP do? So it
Cross cuts.
cross cut a particular functionality across the
Mm-hmm.
application. So in my application, wherever I'm getting a certain type of exception, we
Mm-hmm.
don't need to implement that method, handle validation exception, all the places. It will be at one place. That is why it's called global handler exception.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Got it. So, yes, moving ahead, uh, can you please tell me how does Spring Boot simplify the deployment process compared to traditional Spring applications? Like, what leverage we can take?
Okay, so in
Yeah.
the Spring Boot only,
Mm-hmm.
we have embedded Tomcat server. So
Okay.
we do not have to like create the jar, and
Mm-hmm.
do not have to deploy over Tomcat. So by default, we can just in our application property, we can provide server port. It's by default
Mm-hmm.
8080, but if we want to change that, we can
change that to say 8090, and
Mm-hmm.
in that port it will create my jar using
Mm-hmm.
Maven. Once as soon as I'll do Maven build, and
Mm-hmm.
my application will be deployed.
Okay. Okay. So do you know about Spring Boot support internationalization?
Yes, I know it does support, but
Mm-hmm.
we never had to use this.
Okay.
So,
So
how does
you
it support? It's not difficult, but exact
mm-hmm.
is, I'm not sure about.
Yeah, yeah, that is fine. Okay, so moving ahead, can you please tell us what are the options we have for securing REST API?
Okay,
Yeah.
so first, REST API, if a user is authorized to, or first of all, authenticated and authorized to hit that API, then
Mm-hmm.
only he will be allowed. Otherwise, we will get 403 exception that not
Okay.
authorized. So first,
Mm-hmm.
for example, I gave the example of JWT token. So
Mm-hmm.
using his username and password, a token
Mm-hmm.
should be generated, and uh, in that session going forward,
Mm-hmm.
and token should have a TTL, and
Mm-hmm.
going forward, he'll be able to uh, see it. And uh, other thing we can do, we can implement
Mm-hmm.
caching. We can implement. So like I
Okay, so
came across a case study a
mm-hmm.
few days back. So
Okay.
in that case, they had to create one application like Facebook. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
so in that one particular person can view the profile only
Okay.
of a person only if he in his friends list.
Okay.
Okay, and now, first of all, he will check that how many and if he wants to see that how many friends he has got, so he will hit the REST API, and inside
Mm-hmm.
MongoDB, basically he was hitting that because it's nested and it was easier. So
Mm-hmm.
that he will get fetch the friends list, and
Okay.
he will the response he will store in cache.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
uh, although he's storing the response in cache, but and there that will be TTL of 30 seconds. So within 30 minutes, within 30
Okay.
minutes, if after 10 minutes, if he hits the REST API, so response should come from cache. But
Okay.
consider a scenario that in those 30 minutes, he can have more friends because Facebook is a live application.
Yeah, live
So
application.
in between, he can have more friends.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now friends, number of friends can go from 12 to 15. So if
Okay.
we are reading the response from cache, it will not return us correct response. So
Real time response.
it will not, yeah, return us a real time response. So
Mm-hmm.
what they did, like first, uh, they hit REST API every time, even if they want to see number of total friends list, but this time they will check number of friends. So if the number of friends returning are 12 only, so
Mm-hmm.
that's how they will make sure that uh, uh, friends list is not updated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then the friends list they will return from cache only.
Okay.
But I think
Uh,
mm,
like how are we? I'm not getting one thing. Like how are we securing I mean REST APIs by using this caching way?
okay, so yes, so I was saying that
Mm-hmm.
that was actually different thing, but he will not be able the person, if he wants to view one profile, so he has to be in his friends list and he has
Yeah,
to be authorized. So using
authorized
JWT, we will have a token, and first we will log in.
web tokens.
Yeah, we should have web token, and only we are authorized, then only we can see the friend list.
Hmm.
Oh, sorry, profile of
Profile.
anyone.
Okay. Yeah,
So
this might be one of the way, like using web tokens, and we can use Spring Security in build things, and
so
as yeah, yeah, go ahead.
uh, in Spring Security also we like OAuth token or JW token only we generate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Yes.
apart from that, currently I'm not able to think any other scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
like we can so in the front end side we can do multi-factor authorization.
Yeah, MFA.
Yeah, that
We
is
can do that.
yeah, that will be two-way authentication.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, that we can do.
Okay. Okay. So moving ahead. Mm, so like, do you know? I mean, have you experience on microservice architecture?
No. So
Mm,
we,
okay.
as I said, we leverage
Will you leverage but never used?
extensively. I didn't use. So
Okay. Okay.
like I know what is circuit breaker, what is API gateway.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of circuit breaker, what we do, say in my application only. So
Mm-hmm.
the third component I already told about validation, but in
Uh-huh.
the back end or in the front end, and
Mm-hmm.
in the back end Grafana URL, and if
Mm-hmm.
suppose that application is down, so
Mm-hmm.
we will send a default page of our application,
Mm-hmm.
our own company homepage, and it
Mm-hmm.
will show that please wait and or please try after some time. So
Okay.
like that we display. It retries also
Mm-hmm.
twice, and even after twice it gives us bad response. So we will not throw like end user will not experience like I'm not able to see anything or any.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So which one is better, monolithic or microservices?
Okay, so uh, there is no clear cut answer which
Hmm.
is better, because microservices we can scale up, scale down all the three components, or whatever the number of components separately.
Hmm.
Okay, we can deploy it separately. Okay, but
Hmm.
when it comes to which is easy to manage, then monolithic one is easy to manage.
Easy to manage.
Yes, and like because we do not have separate database, or when it comes to the advantage of microservices, suppose
Mm-hmm.
a particular microservice has to go maintenance, like weekly maintenance or quarterly maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, uh, uh, in the organization there will be number of team and number of teams. So
Mm-hmm.
we do not have to inform each and every person that
Yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah.
service will be down from this time
Mm.
to this time. So that's where that is the advantage of microservice application.
Microservices. Mm.
Yes, but maintainability wise, it's difficult. So because
Mm-hmm.
your unless your project is huge, uh,
Mm-hmm.
you should not use that ideally. But there cannot be a uh, black and white answer that we should use
Which one is
microservice
better?
or yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
monolithic one.
But if one client is approaching to you to work on to start a project for them, it's a small business. So what would you recommend, monolithic or microservices?
That again depends upon the requirement. So if
Okay.
it's a small application, or
Mm-hmm.
I should say like e-commerce application,
Mm-hmm.
in e-commerce application the number of tables are like, he can have product, he can have category, and there could be mapping between product and category, and
Category.
he just has to add his product in the cart from a certain, and he can has he can have payment gateway.
Mm-hmm.
So that is not a huge application. So that
Mm-hmm.
time monolithic is better. So,
Mm-hmm.
but if that like in my previous company, we had
Mm-hmm.
like e-business. So e-business has number of application like
Mm-hmm.
tracking application, tracking of a courier, and
Mm-hmm.
it when we are tracking from different countries, that was a different application. We had door to
Mm-hmm.
door. We had all the logistic now. So that was front end, and front end was going to ESB sometime. Sometime it
Mm-hmm.
was going to Oracle. Now ESB again was going to mainframe. So that was a huge project, and like
Mm-hmm.
multiple vendors, like companies were managing this. So there that
No.
was Capgemini, that was HCL, that was at that time it was CSC. So that was
Okay.
a huge application. So in that
Mm-hmm.
case, yes, monolithic
No.
can be better, because once our server instance is down, so
Mm-hmm.
none of the application will be accessible.
Yes, yes,
Okay, so
correct.
that's where microservice should be useful. But again, then to maintain that, you should have employee strength,
Mm,
workforce.
correct.
Yeah,
Workforce. Okay. Moving ahead. So, have you worked on reactive programming?
no.
Okay, like synchronous, event-driven applications.
You're saying multi-threading programming.
Uh, mm, no, I mean,
So when it comes to like event-driven, please correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm getting you correct, like
mhm,
we have to insert something in the database, or we have to update something, we have to delete something in the database. So we can have a class event listener, and that annotation event listener, and we can have annotation like pre-insert, post-insert, pre-update, post-update.
async.
Like these are the events, and whatever action we want to perform, like once a particular uh,
Mhm,
and particular product is inserted in the database, so
mhm.
we have to apply so and so function. So using that annotation, we can do that. But I'm not sure if you are asking that question.
Yeah, I think asking the same one event, you event listener and all.
Yes, so even
But
listener, we can leverage even listener in that case.
okay. Seems you have worked, or like you just have knowledge.
I do have knowledge.
Uh,
So
okay, okay. Okay, so moving ahead. Mm, so Spring Boot has default caching, right?
yes.
Okay, so is it a good idea to use default caching, or we should use some external caching tools like
Uh,
Redis or other?
Previously in our previous project, we used Redis cache,
Okay.
but we faced some challenges in that. So
Mm-hmm.
we know that we have default time of default TTL of say
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes, or we can configure that. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but Redis, if Redis cache goes down, then we were not able to fetch the data. So that cache
Mm-hmm.
team only suggested us that the data which we have to frequently access,
Mm-hmm.
that we should not put in cache if there is important data. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that so but in our current application, we are using default cache. So Redis cache, we are not using that, but it's not because that because we faced challenges in our previous project. That's why
Mm-hmm.
we have switched. But
So right now you guys are using default caching
yes,
mechanism.
but Redis cache
Okay.
we have used, and multiple times that Redis server went down. So we used to face challenges. So
Okay.
multiple
So are there any limitations of using default caching? Like any
Certainly there should be
disadvantage?
certainly there should be limitations. So people use external caching, but
Uh,
what are those? I don't know.
okay. Okay, that is fine. Moving ahead. Mm, mm, mm. So, like in Spring Boot application, we have embedded server deployment. This is the one thing, right?
Yes,
And another thing is external application server deployment, right?
yes, yes.
So, what are their differences?
Or are you saying that how can we do that, or
Yeah, yeah, like uh, embedded server deployment means we are deploying applications that is runs on Tomcat or
yes?
Jetty, right?
So
And
if we have to in our POM XML. So by
uh-huh.
default, it provides Tomcat embedded
Mm-hmm.
server. So we have to exclude that dependency, and we need to exclude include the dependency of whichever web server we want to uh, deploy,
Integrate.
integrate.
Okay. Okay. So, what are the pros and cons of using an embedded server?
So pros is I said, we don't have to create the jar file and var file, and we do not have to deploy it
Mm-hmm.
again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
Simple to use.
uh, uh, from the cons, uh, we can. I'm not sure if we can, but I think we cannot configure.
Yeah,
Uh,
correct. We cannot have I mean smooth
con-
control and
yes,
server if we want like server configuration changes,
yes,
resources allocation.
that's right.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So moving ahead, is there any role of Docker in deploying Spring Boot application?
So yes, I'll explain in what we used to do. So
Uh-huh.
we already have the jar, and
Okay.
using CD,
Mm-hmm.
we deploy it to Kate, and
Mm-hmm.
inside that Kate, so we have different Docker container, and
Mm-hmm.
there uh, we uh, we deploy our jar, and from there we run. So
Mm-hmm.
previously, what we saw, uh, one challenge we faced, like
Mm-hmm.
we how we were testing, we can test only using Docker desktop. Like
Mm-hmm.
Docker desktop we were testing, and when we are deploying that, it was giving
Mm-hmm.
us error, and that
Okay.
was all also running on Kate. I mean Kate, then Docker itself, but in
Mm-hmm.
Docker desktop it was working fine, but uh, um, when we are deploying over the Kate, it was giving us exception. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, the challenge was like we had externalized uh,
Mm-hmm.
our files, our properties file, or JSON files, which we are
Okay.
validating. Okay. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so it should not be part of the deployment. We have externalized that. So
Mm-hmm.
those JSON files also we were deploying along with the jar files.
Mm-hmm.
So now it was, if we have not externalized it, it will read by default. But we have externalized that. We have
Mm-hmm.
to give the path of those JSON files. Okay.
Okay.
In our Docker desktop, we do not have to provide the path.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but whenever we are deploying over Kate, it
Mm-hmm.
was giving us exception. Then finally we realized that we had to give the path of this. So that's why there is error.
Oh.
And same thing goes with our logger also. So in our logger also, there was logback XML.
Okay.
Okay, so that
Logback. So logback is default one, right?
yeah, logback Spring XML.
Okay.
I'm not sure about name, but I think it's
Mm-hmm.
logback Spring XML only, where we define that path of my logs, and
Mm-hmm.
what is the size of each logger file, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and number of log files. So that file path also we had to uh, define in our Kate, but
Mm,
we did not have to define in Docker desktop.
okay, okay. Nice, very nice. And moving ahead, while working or committing your code, you may encounter some conflicts, right? So how do you manage merge conflicts
Okay, so first thing we should do that uh,
manually?
frequently we had to pull the latest code. So we create our own fork,
Mm-hmm.
or uh, we should sync the fork, and
Mm-hmm.
we should pull the latest changes. Okay,
Okay.
so what it happens that if I am working on particular file and you are also working on that file.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we both have raised the PR,
Mm-hmm.
or two team members have raised the PR. I have approved. I have approved one PR, and he has like merged the changes. But the
Mm-hmm.
second person, he has not made changes on the latest file. Okay,
Okay.
are you getting my point? So uh, suppose today is 2nd of August. On 2nd
Mm-hmm.
August, you both uh, take the latest code and you created your own fork.
One
And
for.
on 3rd of August, one person has made the changes and he created PR. His PR is approved and merged. But the first person is still working on the previous version of that file. So he will, once he raise the PR, he will definitely get merge conflicts.
Merge
So what he
conflicts.
has to do, so he has to take the latest, sync his fork,
Mm-hmm.
pull the changes, and piece of code, his own piece of code separately, he has to
Okay.
apply the
So
changes.
how can we do this through Git commands?
So there is like git pull and git push, and I mean it's simple. Git pull, and using git pull we will pull the changes, and using git push or git commit -m then message will
Okay.
commit, and git push will push the changes.
Mm-hmm. So you use Eclipse, right? Or
Mostly I use IntelliJ, but I have used
IntelliJ?
Eclipse also extensively. But
Okay,
uh,
okay.
in the last few days, or
Mm-hmm.
last 1 year approx, I'm using IntelliJ.
Okay. So there are some inbuilt tools also available, right, in this Eclipse and IntelliJ to
Yes, yes.
resolve
So
conflicts.
I used to do that only. From the Eclipse
Okay.
only, I used to push my changes.
Mm, okay. And what is rebase process?
So Rebase also, I think exact command I don't know, but we rebase the changes. We right click on the file and we
Mm-hmm.
rebase the changes. So uh, like if we that will take us to the latest version, I think.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
not sure.
Let's say if I need to update my feature branch with the latest from the main branch
Yes,
without creating additional merge or commits.
yes.
Mm, okay. Okay. So, how can we optimize a Maven build for a large project?
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you mean that we need to create since it's a large project, it's if we are using microservices already, so my camera is again not working. What happened? I just realized it.
Yeah, yeah.
Not sure why it's getting switched off. Okay.
Fine.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
when we are using microservices, we are anyways creating different jars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But when we are not using microservices, so mm, we we have and one application is dependent upon other. Okay,
Mm.
so we have to.
So can we do something like creating a Docker file in project root, and Docker
Yes,
file
so
would use a
we
base
have,
image?
yeah, base image, and over the base image we have to install all the, like, if Java 17 or
Mm-hmm.
whatever we have to install, we have to write run, and
Mm-hmm.
over and above that we can do. But uh, coming to your question, how do we enhance Maven? I don't think it's both are related, or are they?
I think they are related, uh, because I mean, let's say, for development, the Docker file would use a base image,
Yes.
an application jar file into the container, and then for production, I'm not sure, but yeah, there is something relation between this Docker file and optimization of Maven build.
No, what happens that if we deploy using CD,
Mm-hmm.
we deploy the jar only, and
Okay.
it reads the jar, and
Uh-huh.
over that jar, and that jar is already created through Maven. Now Maven work is already done.
Mm-hmm.
Maven work is done. It was only, used only to create a jar, build the application. When it
Mm-hmm.
goes to like Docker or Kate, so whatever enhancement it will do over and above this jar only. Now Maven is not coming into picture.
Okay. Okay, got your point. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see this later.
Yes.
Anyways, okay. So do you know about Maven lifecycle and it phases?
Uh, Clean, build,
Mm.
like that.
So what's the purpose of clean?
Okay, so clean means it checks if there is any compilation issues, I think.
Okay.
It doesn't create a jar for sure,
Mm-hmm.
Maven clean, but it checks if there are any compilation issue, or that ID only can check, but clean also does that. Clean, validate, test, package.
Mm. There's
Uh,
a whole pattern.
yeah, these are, I mean, you said life cycle, so
Mm.
install,
Install.
site,
Yeah.
deploy. So these are the life cycle.
Okay. Okay. So moving ahead. What are design patterns in Java? Like, why there is a requirement of design patterns?
Okay, so shall I tell you by the example, or so
Uh,
design pattern is something which we can use to enhance some feature.
mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you say recently uh, we faced like this, so there is one form, okay, pertaining
Mm-hmm.
to like Spring Boot, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and in that form we are inserting all the information, and we are clicking on submit button.
Mm-hmm.
uh, we are calling a REST API. REST API is calling service, then calling
Mm-hmm.
repository, and at the end, it's getting saved in the database.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Okay.
you second time, you're not hitting submit button, but you
Mm-hmm.
will just refresh the page. So what happens
Okay.
then? Now, this page doesn't have uh, any text which is primary key in the database. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and using our entity, we are primary key, we are defining using at the rate ID,
Mm-hmm.
and it's automatically generated. So if our previous ID was 30, so next ID will be 31. So as soon as I click on refresh, form will be submitted again. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and it will be same information will be again saved to database. Previously it was saved to database using 30 ID. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's saved to 31 ID, but ideally it should not happen. Okay, so second
Okay.
time if we refresh, it should not happen. So that's where a design pattern comes in
Mm-hmm.
picture, which is G P
Mm-hmm.
R G, post
Okay.
redirect and get. So
Okay.
first time when we are calling our REST API, it's post. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we are refreshing it, so uh, in first scenario it's post, but uh, our post is returning us
Mm-hmm.
the response HTTP 200. Okay,
Okay.
and it will again go to our controller. So this time, what will happen? Instead of returning 200 post, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
am creating a get REST API, and
Okay.
get REST API will return me the response.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, response entity that will be returned. Now my post will be redirected to
Mm-hmm.
get REST. So how we are calling my post API using uh, in the response entity, then we do slash like validate whichever the URL. So
Mm-hmm.
this time I will call
Mm-hmm.
in the return. It will
Mm-hmm.
my post API will call return
Mm-hmm.
slash the endpoint of get. So, uh, uh, what shall I explain using Notepad?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll share my screen.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so here I have my controller,
Mm-hmm.
and it's calling my controller,
Mm-hmm.
and like we have service layer. Oh, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
we have service layer, and data is inserted to DB. Now
Correct.
my control will it will go like it will go to service layer, then database.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying repository entity. So now it the same, it will return the response using
Mm-hmm.
post API. It if it is saved, then using the controller, it will return the user
Mm-hmm.
HTTP 200 response. It is post. So
Okay.
uh, that is the normal sequence. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So uh, what this PRG pattern does,
Mm-hmm.
if data is being saved in my database, so
Mm-hmm.
this post API I will call using like validate.
Validate.
Okay, it
Mm-hmm.
will return me the response like return HTTP 200, and basically it will give me response entity. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now
Okay.
what will I do? I will do like I will call a method of getter method, and say its name is revalidate. So
Okay.
there will be a different method itself, revalidate, which is called using we have uh, that annotation is I think post entity. Don't exactly remember the
Mm-hmm. That's
annotation of.
fine.
Yeah, then I will write the method name like not void but string
Mm-hmm.
revalidate. Okay,
Okay.
this
Mm-hmm.
revalidate will return what was previously returning me HTTP, I mean response entity.
Mm-hmm.
So now if a user has clicked on refresh
Mm-hmm.
button,
Mm-hmm.
then this time response will not be saved.
Okay.
So that is like one of the pattern. Otherwise, we use MVC pattern, uh,
Mm-hmm.
multiple design pattern we use. So I wanted to tell you because
Yeah, it was
recently we
very
did this, so it helped us.
yeah, this example was very interesting. Very interesting. So yes, moving ahead. Mm, so have you used a singleton pattern
So
before?
in uh, Spring Boot, every class is by default singleton. So
Okay.
only one instance will be created. So we don't need to explicitly
Mm-hmm.
uh, define this.
Okay. Okay, got it. Moving ahead, what is a diamond problem in Java and how
Okay.
can we address it?
Okay. So as we know that we cannot have multiple in Java doesn't support multiple inheritance.
Correct.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
we have like a class car that is extending a taxi
Mm-hmm.
extends car. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
taxi if extends car, but taxi cannot extend vehicle. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now you from Java 8 we have like functional interface, or we can have like interface where we have default method.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and once we implement one interface,
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessary that we have to implement those default method. Yes, abstract method we have to implement, but default
Mm-hmm.
method we don't need to implement. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but now in the case like uh, again, suppose here car and vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
these two are suppose interfaces, and both contains implementation of drive.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now my car is implementing vehicle
Mm-hmm.
and taxi both. And
Mm-hmm.
if I do not need to override the drive method, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to implement drive method in the car class also. Okay,
Correct.
I
Mm-hmm.
have written drive and
Mm-hmm.
at the rate override.
All right.
Now that's where diamond problem will occur. That
Mm-hmm.
since I am writing override, so
Mm-hmm.
which method, whether I am want to override the car or
Mm-hmm.
vehicle, so that's
Mm-hmm.
where diamond problem will occur.
Okay. And what is the solution?
Okay, so solution is one second. So yes, so either we have to remove the override keyword here,
Okay.
so it will
Okay.
be explicit to the car.
Okay. Can
Okay,
interfaces helps in solving this problem?
I'm sorry, please come
Uh,
again.
can interfaces helps solving this problem?
So that's where I'm implementing two interfaces only.
Okay.
So I mean, uh,
Uh,
uh, actually, the reason why Diamond Java does not support multiple inheritance because of Diamond problem only. But
mm-hmm.
post Java 8, in this scenario, we can have
Mm-hmm.
Diamond problem if we want to override.
Okay.
Only if we want to override.
Override.
So we have to get away with the override
Hmm.
annotation.
Correct. Correct. Okay. So moving ahead, how does Java handle memory leaks?
Java handle what?
Memory leaks. Memory leaks.
Okay, using
Yeah. Yeah.
GC.
Okay.
Okay, using garbage collection. So uh, in latest,
Something
I
like
think in Java
ZDC.
11, we
Mm.
have ZZC. So that will
Mm.
give us very less pause time. Uh, so and we have that was ZZC, and there was another ZC that was introduced in Java 10 or 11.
Mm.
So that also gives us very less pause time. So that's where it handles memory leak effectively.
Okay. So are there any techniques as well other than this GC to identify and fix memory leaks?
Okay, so uh, like
Do you know about Java Flight Recorder, Eclipse Memory Analyzer in some newer versions only?
not sure, but
Visual
like
VM.
we have to enhance our code in such a way that like we are using input stream. So we have
Mm.
to in our finally method, we have to like destroy those. So
Mm-hmm.
there should not be any object
Okay.
which like
Mhm. Okay. So let's say you suspect a memory leak is occurring in a long running Java application. Okay. So
yes.
describe the steps you would take to investigate and resolve this issue.
Okay, so uh, we have a tool called Dynatrace.
Dynatrace.
Yes.
Okay.
So using that, suppose it tells us that at which step memory leakage coming, or suppose a particular method is taking a hell lot
Mm-hmm.
of time. So
Okay.
that's where there are chances that it may be due to memory leak. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, Dynatrace helps us, uh,
Mm-hmm.
not exact, but it helps us going close to the root cause uh,
Mm-hmm.
of uh, which code is crying.
Mm. How can we integrate this in our application? Like if
So
someone wants to integrate.
okay, so like in Dynatrace, we can uh, either using GitHub or using the jar, we can leverage our code, and we can
Okay.
hit REST API using that, and
Mm-hmm.
it provides us. I mean, uh, the number of REST API hit will be huge
Mm-hmm.
at any given point of time. So we can configure in such a way that, because when we use our Postman,
Mm-hmm.
hardly we hit one API or two APIs,
Mm-hmm.
but in the fraction in a certain time, it
Mm-hmm.
number of hits are we can configure, and if
Okay.
there are n number of hits, then it gives us real picture, that because before going to production environment, we anticipate that
Mm-hmm.
particular REST API will have huge number of hits. So
Okay.
that's where we do performance testing.
Mm. Got it. So, how does parallel stream enhance performance, and
Okay,
when should it be used?
okay. So that's an interesting question. So it uses multiple threads. So
Okay.
like we have uh, a list. It has
Mm-hmm.
huge number of elements. Okay,
Okay.
okay. So and we want to like filter those. So it's a list of employees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Employees contains name,
Okay.
city,
Okay.
salary. So
Mm-hmm.
we want to filter the employees. Only
Mm-hmm.
those employees should. I have only employees whose city matches Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we will filter those. So we will stream. We will filter. So
Mm-hmm.
if there are huge number of employees, so parallel stream make sure that it creates parallel chunks of streaming. Like we have, for example, we have 400 employees.
Mm-hmm.
So for every 100 employees, there will be a parallel thread will be running, and
Okay.
it will be filtering uh,
Mm-hmm.
in parallelly. So that's the operation will be faster. But
Okay. Okay.
when you say where we should use that, so when we are doing operation like filter, we can use that. But
Mm-hmm.
for example, we are doing sorting.
Okay.
Okay. So it's not decided that if I again share my screen,
Mm-hmm.
can I?
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Are you speaking something?
I'm sorry. Somehow I got muted. So
Okay.
since when you were not able to hear?
When you shared your screen, when you
Okay.
started.
So
Yeah, yeah.
but I was saying that we
Mm-hmm.
had like 400 employees,
Okay.
and using parallel stream, say
Mm-hmm.
four threads are trying to access a list each
Okay.
100 employees, and we have to
Okay.
sort the employees based upon
Mm-hmm.
their name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now their name in the first list, their name from A to Z. In the second list also their
Mm-hmm.
names can be from A to Z. So
Okay.
first chunk will give me sorting from A to Z,
Mm-hmm.
but second again will give me sorting from A to Z. Okay.
Okay.
I
Okay.
will again now, but overall list is not sorted.
Overall is not sorted. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
because there are four different sortings, but
Uh,
overall list is not sorted. Had there been filtering, I because we would have removed some employees based upon the
mm-hmm.
city. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
finally the whole chunk I can get like this. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but in the scenario where we have to sort something,
Mm-hmm.
we should not use parallel stream.
Mm. Okay. Very interesting. Okay, moving ahead. Uh, let's say you need to process a large collection of objects in the shortest possible time. So how would you decide whether to use a parallel or sequential stream?
I have to sort.
No, no. Like you need to process a large collection of objects in the shortest possible time.
Okay, so that again depends upon the scenario that when you say process, we have
Mm,
to do something over the collection.
yes, yes, correct.
What I'm doing, that depends. Suppose I'm just
What would be the
fetching.
criterias? For example, one would be the size of the data, the cost of processing each element.
Those are fine. I mean, size
Mm-hmm.
of the criteria is fine. Okay,
Okay.
but
Uh-huh.
like I gave the example of sorting, or uh, you know, we have employees and
Mm-hmm.
departments and their
Mm-hmm.
salary. Okay, now
Mm-hmm.
you ask me that you gave me all the departments
Mm-hmm.
uh, based upon, and you return me like department and number of employees in that department.
Mm-hmm.
I can uh, uh, give you that. But if you tell me that department and maximum salary in that department, you return
Mm-hmm.
me map like this. Okay. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if I sort, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So
yes.
if I stream, it will give me correct result. But
Okay.
if I parallelly stream, so my first employee can
Mm-hmm.
be in department one, and my
Mm-hmm.
150th employee can also be in department one, and my
Okay.
250th employee can be also in department one. So if
Mm-hmm.
I do parallel stream, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
my first thread will run on like uh, first piece of chunk parallel stream. So what parallel stream does, it will divide my whole list into a number of chunks. Say
Number of
four
chunks.
threads are catering four
Mm-hmm.
chunks. So first stream will return me that. Now
Mm-hmm.
second will return also. Then in both case we have to apply maximum function again. So uh,
Mm-hmm.
we should not apply parallel stream in that case. So I just now only I thought about it. I'm not sure if
Mm-hmm.
I've given correct answer.
Okay. But it is fine at least. You have tried. So yes, it was a nice answer. And moving ahead, have you used synchronized keyword uh, in your application ever?
I know about synchronized keyword, but there was never a scenario we
Okay.
encountered that we had to use this.
Okay, so why do we use synchronize keyword?
Okay, so synchronize keyword, like if I am applying a function, say
Mm-hmm.
I am inserting a record using a
Mm-hmm.
method. Okay. At
Mm-hmm.
that time, I am deleting a record also. So when I am inserting a records, my delete function should not call that method. Okay.
Mm, okay.
So when that object will acquire the log of this, so unless this functionality is finished, uh,
Mm-hmm.
this will not be called by any other object.
Okay. And what about the concept of serialization?
Okay. So serialization means
And serialization, I think you guys are already using in your project, converting your JSON to objects, right?
deserialization. That is
Oh,
deserialization,
or deserialization,
because we are converting from JSON
converting
to
JSON
object.
to
So
objects. Yes, yes.
when we are converting object into like byte stream, that is
Mm-hmm.
serialization. So we have to implement a serializable interface. And
Mm-hmm.
so why it's used, because uh, when we have to send something over the network,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't understand Java code. Okay, so we have
Mm-hmm.
to convert that into like JSON, or according to OS. So we have to
Okay.
serialize that object so that OS will read in that format.
Okay. So this serialization and deserialization is simple to implement, or we may face some challenges in this as well.
Okay, so I
Like
did-
we
I
just can we just write some code and it will auto deserialize or serialize things? Is it?
serialization should be simple,
Hmm.
but I did face a challenge while deserializing that.
Okay. What was
Okay,
the challenge?
but that was very specific. So I
Mm-hmm.
cannot say that uh, this particular challenge we will face while deserializing. So, but since I did face, so
Mm-hmm.
I want to tell you.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so uh, when using the controller,
Mm-hmm.
we are reading my JSON file. So otherwise, what happens that
Mm-hmm.
uh, when we call our REST API, okay,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
we pass the object if we are only passing the object. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we pass the object, and uh, we in the method itself we write @valid, and
Okay.
if there is any error in that object, because we create the class and
Mm-hmm.
we write all the annotation, and
Mm-hmm.
it will return us binding object, and I mean using the binding object we can do global exception handler and all.
Mm-hmm.
But in that case, what happens that we had to deserialize the this object also. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
and deserialize how will, now in our controller we don't have project, we don't
Uh,
have object.
object.
We in my controller I only have JSON. So
JSON.
now I should not deserialize it
Mm-hmm.
in my controller only. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because controller is not meant for that. Okay.
Mm. Yes, yes, yes.
We have
Got it.
to keep up. I mean, technically I can do it. Java will
Mm-hmm.
not stop me, but I should not do that. Okay.
Mm.
So
Yes,
I
yes.
had to deserialize in my service class. Okay.
Okay.
And my service, when I'm deserializing, uh,
Mm-hmm.
now how will I call my validation?
Mm-hmm.
As I said that I have configured my validation. I didn't use annotations of validation. Okay.
Mm. Okay.
Now my control is going to my service class, and that's where
Mm.
I'm deserializing it using object mapper, or
Object mapper.
right. So now how will I call my validation class because validation class is not it's deserializing and it's giving me certain result. So
Okay.
what I did that we created a configuration class, okay, and that configuration class was I have created one object deserializer, and inside my configuration class. So what happens that whenever my application is getting loaded, my configuration class will be loaded. Okay. In my
Correct.
configuration class, I called my validation serializer also, and it uh, then it called this deserializer called my validation class after it is deserialized. So
Nice,
don't
nice.
don't remember the exact flow. I think I'm missing something in between, but that's how we did.
Okay.
But I mean, it's not a black and white answer that we will face this issue in deserialization, but I'm telling from my experience.
Something between in black and white.
Yes.
Okay, nice. So, let's say you are developing an application that loads plugin from third-party sources. Okay. So, how
Okay.
would you ensure the security of your system while using these plugins?
Okay.
Hmm.
So I think
Can
you
we,
are asking in terms of we might get forgery attack.
yeah, any type of attack, like any type of security attack or security related things? Can we create some custom class loader to control the loading of plugins and define strict security policies with the security manager? Something like that.
Not sure. I didn't come across this scenario.
Okay. Okay, no worries. So, moving ahead, let's say you are designing an API for creating complex configuration object for an application. Okay, which design pattern would you choose to facilitate ease of use and flexibility in object creation?
Okay, so using if we Spring Boot, so when you say object creation, so Spring Boot using IOC, we create our object. Okay, so
Okay.
we don't do like employee E equals to new employee.
Mm-hmm.
So we use injection. We can do that using XML. We can do that using AutoWire. We can do that using constructor injection.
Okay.
So we and highly recommended is constructor injection. Okay.
Okay.
The reason being, but it's not limited to the complex application as the scenario you mentioned. So for any kind of application, uh, at the constructor injection is recommended. And reason is, so first of all, immutability.
Okay.
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 Suppose I'm doing @AutoWired. So if I want to make my class immutable, I cannot do that because I have to like. Second, in case of unit testing, it's very difficult to use like auto wiring, but constructor injection, it's easier. So it is simple.
Okay. Okay.
Did I answer
Nice.
your question? Are you asking in same?
Uh, I'm not sure. Actually, the answer may be different. I mean, for this question, there might have multiple answers. But what I know is we can use a builder pattern for this. Uh, have you heard about builder pattern?
I have heard about that. Same.
Yeah. But it's not, I mean, there is no single answer only. There
Okay.
might have different answers.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to give coding question. Okay.
Okay.
Stream API coding question. Okay.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So can you please share your screen and open any editor? Okay. So the first question is, you are given a list of integers. Find out all the numbers starting with 1 using stream functions and print those numbers.
I'm given a list of in.
Integers, and you have to find all the numbers starting with 1.
Okay, so I have to
And
like 11,
yeah,
19,
11,
1.
19. Yeah, correct.
Okay. Okay, so here I will
Or
have.
I can give you input, or you can take yourself. It's up to you.
Yeah, I can. Mm, um, 2, 6, 11, 119, 121. So this is the list, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So I have to filter in such a way mm, so what I'll do is this string. Mm, 21.
Okay, so you are first converting each
So
integer
I'm
to string.
converting. Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay. Got
what
it.
we'll do after this? So I will fetch the first character of each string
Each string.
and
We'll check whether it is one or not.
yes. So it will return me stream only stream.
Hmm.
Oh, where I is gone. Okay.
Yeah.
So here I got like stream of uh, what do you call a string. Now
Hmm.
I'll filter using now I uh, now it's number. Okay, number dot substring. Sorry, number dot substring from it's 0 to 1. 0
Hmm.
1 equals so 1, and
Yes.
then I'll collect it to list. or even Java 17 allows me to collect into list. So list of this is string.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, I can do it in numbers also, but
No, no, it's fine. Written in the string. That is fine.
okay. So I will just print it. I will just it hasn't returned anything. File list. It is empty, so there should be. Uh, what I do, let me do it in parts. So
Okay, that is fine.
yeah, it has given me modified list
Mm-hmm.
in string. Now I have to filter this, so I will just give yes, string 1 to 1 dot substring. Just I'm looking that
Mm-hmm.
it should be 0 to 1 or how it is like that. Modified list, it has given me one only. Okay.
Yes.
And so this is fine, or even for 121, it will give me one only. Yes,
Giving one only.
but why it's not giving me the result? So this is written, this is a stream only, and
Mm-hmm.
filtering number substring 0 to 1 equals to 1. It should return me a stream.
Can you try starts with?
Yeah, I can try starts with, but
Yeah, yeah, but it should work. All it should
yeah, even this should
fine
work.
as well. Mm-hmm.
Uh, why it's trying? Modify it. Okay, I will try it.
You are not printing modified list.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's, and we can do distinct also. It's
Yes,
giving.
yes, yes.
So
Okay, got it.
yeah.
Uh, Next question. Let's go to the next question. Yeah, you are given a list and you have to find three maximum and three minimum numbers from the list. You can use the same list or it's up to you. Three maximum and three minimum. You have to print.
Okay. So
by using stream API.
yes. So we can apply stream dot. So there is one collectors dot sort. Collectors dot um, battery. Okay. Collectors dot grouping by, and there is one method collectors dot sort also, or we have to apply here. Grouping by. Collectors dot counting 3. Then budget expect. Mhm. But there is one method in collectors.
Hmm. Cannot we do like after stream? Cannot we use dot sorted?
Yes, we can do that, but
And then we can use limit
yeah, limit 3.
3
Yes. Then we use
collect.
to list. Collect in.
Yeah, to list is fine. Uh, collect collectors dot to list
Okay.
integer.
Yeah. In Java 17, we don't need
Big.
to.
Hmm.
Okay. This. Actually, we can sort in reverse order using collectors. So
1 1 2. So this is the first 3 minimum.
these are first 3 minimum, but if we are sorting, and then we have to use collectors dot sort, then reverse something. We have.
We can do one more thing inside this brackets, sorted brackets. We can do a comma b arrow b minus a
Oh yes, yes, lambda expression.
lambda expression.
Yeah,
Yeah, this will return descending order.
yeah. This is. Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah, so Yeah, it will work most probably.
Yes,
Yes.
it did.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can now unshare.
Yeah.
So yes, Dheeraj, it was very, very nice interview and I learned a lot of things from you, really. And you have a lot of some great knowledge.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one thing, Dheeraj, we have a lot of new Java developers, those who are having 1 year, 2 year, 3 year of experience. So do you have any message to them?
So, a colleague of mine told me, and it worked wonders for me. So,
Mm-hmm.
he told me that whenever you are doing something, so
Mm-hmm.
don't just Google it, copy paste. First, you give a thought and go deep inside that. But
Okay.
once you have to deliver something by doing Google or nowadays
Uh,
Chat GPT, or we can give
mm-hmm.
the output and we can do that. But in the long run, it will help us.
Mm-hmm.
So um, it will. I mean, that's the message.
Yeah, it is nice. And even nowadays, people are using ChatGPT very aggressively. ChatGPT, Google, and these tools.
Yeah, so those are helpful. Nothing wrong in using that. Like we do use like IntelliJ, and IntelliJ or any ID solves our problems. But
Mm-hmm.
if we meet older guys, those who have worked in Java 1.2, 1.3,
1.3.
I mean, initially their ID were not very strong, so
Mm-hmm.
it didn't provide us so many features. And
Mm-hmm.
few people used to uh, code on Notepad, and they used to
Yes,
compile
yes, yes.
manually. But
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they are working libraries of Java
Mm,
now. So the way they
correct.
have learned their lesson, so it helps us in long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is correct.